Three. Hello, welcome to the Diamond Show. Thank you very much indeed for tuning in. We're broadcast directly on Radio W.O.R.K.S. You now, Radio W.O.R.K.S. new out. Please do engage and comment and get involved with tonight's discussion. As Facebook is starting to build its audience, we're just going to give a brief introduction. This evening's lineup, this evening's interview on the show, Gregg Korrol from Brooklyn in New York City. Upon today is an author of a we're going to see his award-winning and best-selling book, and it's my great pleasure actually now to introduce you, Gregg Korrol. Thanks for coming on the over there in New York City.
Bradley, I don't know if you can
hear me now.
You're cutting out a lot. I can't really hear you too well.
I'm cutting out my side, am I? Yeah, okay. Just bear with me 1 second. Let's see if we can get this this speed increased. Can you hear me okay now, Gregg?
Now I can. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, great stuff. Now, sometimes it takes a little while to propagate when you're going live, but let me just start again. So good evening, everybody. This is the Diamond Show. I'm Bradley Chapman. And tonight we're broadcasting live with an interview with Gregg Korrol from Brooklyn, New York City. Gregg is the author of a fantastic book called The Gifted Storyteller. We're going to be talking this evening about Gregg's journey in the education system in the US and how he transformed, his mind opened up to creating this wonderful opportunity by becoming a best-selling author and writing his book called The Gifted Storyteller. Hey, good evening, Gregg. How are you? Bless you. Thanks for coming on the show. How's New York City today?
New York is wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Bradley. Really, it's an honor to be on the Diamond Show, and looking forward to having this conversation. It's a bit hot here in New York, but it's beautiful.
Sure. What's the weather like in I guess it's rather. How's the weather there in New York, Gregg?
It's beautiful out. It's one of those beautiful summer New York days that it's a little hot, but very enjoyable.
Fantastic, super. I'm just going to try and adjust my connection speed here, Gregg. Just bear with me 1 second while I try and make that just a little bit faster. I've got two different internets plugged in. Hopefully the speed might be a little bit better now. So listen, we're going to go into a fantastic interview this evening, and we're going to talk a bit about your journey. Now, the first thing I wanted to ask you really was what what made you write the book, The Gifted Storyteller. What was it that sort of came into your mind? What was this mind shift moment where you decided to say, I've got this idea, this paradigm shift, I'm going to create this book? What was it that made you write the book, Gregg?
I don't know if I can pinpoint one specific moment. There's a collection of moments. I think the pinpointed moment was when I actually sat down to actually write it and give myself the routine of doing that. But there were lots of moments, and really what it comes down to is I've worked with a lot of people. I've spoken with a lot of people in my life, and something that's very obvious is we all have a different story. When I speak about the gifted storyteller, a lot of people think it's about how to tell a better story, in other words, as a storyteller, and it is, but not to the degree of to somebody else. The gifted storyteller really refers to you and the story you're telling yourself. In other words, you have a voice in your head running 24/7, aside from the time that you're sleeping. And that voice is really narrating your story. As somebody once told me a long time ago when I was a teenager, they said, regardless of who you meet in life and what you do, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, you're with you. There's a voice going on in your head that's talking to you and kind of narrating your story. And it's amazing to me how really 10, 20, 30 different people could look at the same situation and yet walk away with a very different meaning. Because we interpret life. We see something that happens or experience something, and then what comes next? What comes next is our mind starts to create a story around what we saw, what it means to us, how it's affected us, and that story really defines everything that comes next. So the gifted storyteller actually refers to that voice in your head, because anything with so much brilliance that can turn any situation into an opportunity or a horror story is truly gifted. So the gifted storyteller refers to that voice in your head. It's the story you're telling yourself about your life.
That's really powerful. That's really powerful stuff. I'm sure I can resonate with that, because I think the story inside our head has probably been with us for our life, and it resonates and adapts and grows as we go through our journey. And so many people never get the chance, do they, Greg, to share their story, to tell their story. What's your advice to people that are in that, where they know the story, or they're aware of this, to share those people who they're your best, the Diamond Solar viewers, to share that story?
You're cutting out again? I need you to repeat what you just said. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's the broadband my side. What I'm saying is that in every person's head, they've got a story. They've got a worthy story, but they don't always know they've got a story. Then they become aware that they've got a story, but perhaps they never get the opportunity to share it. What would be your advice to help those people that are thinking about sharing their story to actually do it and share it?
I think it really starts with you. In other words, the first thing that comes to mind is, like, when I used to watch like a football game, or American football game, I should say, or any sporting game. You have the game that's going on in the field, and then you have this crowd of anywhere between 20 and 100,000 people. And what amazes me is every single person has their own story, has their own life. And the reality is everybody's seeing something different. And I think we get very caught up in our own story. It's very easy to get caught in our own mind, forgetting that everybody else is going through that same experience that you. Granted, some people make it look a little easier. Some people are able to be more forward, less shy, connect better with other people, whatever the case is. But the reality is, I believe anybody can do any of it. It's just a matter of, again, what's going on in here and how you're conveying it to the world.
I also understand that thanks for that, Greg, great insight. I understand that Jack Canfield, gave you a really fantastic shout about your book becoming a bestseller. What did Jack have to say about your book? Because Jack Canfield, absolutely the most fantastic individual, very well known all over the world, and to get a shout out from Jack Canfield, well, that's just absolutely a fantastic achievement. So what did he say?
Well, as you know, he wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and if you've ever listened to Jack's story, it's fascinating because he also was an educator to begin with, and was working kind of a part-time after, to try and take his next steps or whatever the case may be. After I finished writing the book, that was one of my fears. It was one of the stories I was telling myself is, well, how do I get it out there? How do I get my message out to the world? And it's interesting how kind of the universe kind of responds to thoughts. I don't know if you find this. I know I do. I've met numerous people who we talk about coincidences or just how things happen. Sometimes you start thinking about something, and all of a sudden you start getting signs. You read something, you see something. It's really where your focus is going. And so I really sat there thinking about, well, how am I going to get this out? What do I do next? And all of a sudden, these emails started popping up from Jack Canfield about his bestseller blueprint program. So I signed up for it. And it's a great program if anybody's looking for how to write their book and how to get started. And it takes you through the whole process of writing to what to do after the writing. I didn't need it for the writing part, but it gave me a lot of tips and tricks for what to do after. And it gave me, I would say, some confidence in taking my next steps, which led to my publishing deal. So, and the book got a very nice shout out because it did open as a #1 new release on Amazon. And I just got a quick tweet from Jack Canfield.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well done and congratulations. It's very interesting. And yeah, I do agree. I think that when you start to think about your business, you start to think about your idea inside your diamond self, your mind starts to go into this overdrive. And I call it sort of like the diamond mindset, the diamond Disney world, where you can see everything, in your mind. You can see everything, excuse me, happening. You can see amazing things. You almost see your story panning out in front of you in a TV film in your head, and you're experiencing that. And that experience and that emotion, that feeling is one of the most powerful feelings. It's almost like a paradigm shift for an entrepreneur when he realizes that actually he's got a business, he's got an offering, he wants to take something out there to client services, to the world. And that a feeling of emotion when it's all running through, the ideas and the energy and the creativity or riding that diamond wave is such a valuable moment, and one that you never forget. Now, I mean, you've been in the education sector for a long time. You've got something like 22 years experience working in the US education system. And what I want to understand is through working in the educational system as a teacher, as a principal, how did that impact your mindset and actually the gifted storyteller? Because having 22 years in the education system, working with young kids, you're helping young children every single day to be a better version of themselves. And teaching is a very tough place to be. I've got lots of friends of mine that are school teachers and working within the education system here in the UK. And you've obviously manifested the thought process, which is delivered. You've delivered the gifted storyteller. But how did the education system and 22 years in education help you to bring this book to the fore? What was it that ignited you within that education experience?
Well, I'm just going to digress to something you were saying before, and then I'll come back to that, which really, when you're talking about coincidence, or we're talking about how connecting, something, and I mentioned this in the Gifted Storyteller, but you have to remember that, or let's put it this way. What my father once said to me is, he said, if you could take everything that people understand and kind of that everything that we've known, everything that we've studied, and kind of, shove it into this bottle. Look at all around us that we don't know. We shouldn't get so caught up in ourselves to think or believe that we understand how the world necessarily works. I mean, obviously at a point they thought the world was flat. We don't know everything. So when you start, and just again to the listeners, when you start to doubt, when you start to worry, like, is there any truth to that? Have a little faith. Just remember that we don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but act as if. Because a lot of times people get stuck in doing the things they want because they put up their own barriers and they put up their own roadblocks. But what if that's not the case? What if you really do envision something and want something, and it's just a matter of envisioning it and going after it and seeing it and making it a reality? What if that's all true? And again, it's just something for people to think about. But
it's very, very interesting that you should talk about that, and it's something worth exploring, because the roadblocks are the things that hold you back. So I mean, let's just explore that, because the roadblocks in everyday life, what you're feeling, what's going through your mind, your emotions, what you see, feel, sense, and touch, can all be roadblocks to prevent you, psychologically, from moving forward to achieve something that you want to achieve. And as you say, act as if. And it's very, very important to understand that there will be pains in going through any roadblock, but it's the lessons that you learn by pushing through those roadblocks that ultimately makes you stronger. I know so many people in life that choose to divert around the roadblocks. And of course, if it was in traffic on a road, it's a different analogy. But in business and in life, the only way to learn is to really get up close with those hurdles that you face, the roadblocks of life, to understand them and to understand how to beat them, how to go through and beyond those roadblocks. And I think that's a really important thing that you mentioned, because we do get stuck, and setting people free from those roadblocks and seeing them move on is such an empowering thing to see and to watch and to feel. And I guess you've got a sense of that within the Gifted Storyteller, right?
Yeah. And it's just, again, something that I had to get past, because writing was something I wanted to do since I was in college. I always enjoyed writing, and I remember literally being on my last day of college walking with a friend of mine. We were walking down a campus road, and I had said to her, if I don't get a book published in my lifetime, I failed. And really, that was 20 years ago. And I had hit a point where I was like, are you really going to let another 20 years go by and say the same story and say the same thing? And so it's kind of when I had enough courage within myself to take a chance. And yet I meet lots of people, I mean, through education, through other experiences, through Facebook, etc. And it amazes me the risks that people are willing to take and the chances that people are willing to take, all in the name of not only bettering themselves, but helping other people. You know, it's absolutely.
That's quite a heartfelt sentence of words to me, because I've done exactly that recently. Exactly the same thing that you're going through. As entrepreneurs, we all share, one common sentiment, one common scenario, that we've agreed to make a sacrifice, personally and financially, to give the gift of what we have to other people through our life's experiences. And when you give that gift, yes, it can be painful in that journey, but we all understand what's on the other side of the diamond rainbow. And that's a very rewarding and fulfilling career where, actually, I think it's true to say that if you do what you love, Greg, and I'm sure you'll agree that you probably never worked a day in your life, but you've got to go through that sweat, that sacrifice, and those tears in order to get there. And even myself, there's been so many times in my life, in different businesses that I've had, where you just want to pull the duvet up over your head. You've had enough. And today was probably one of those days where, it's just too much and too stressful. But then you just dig back in, you find that strength, and you go again, right? Do you feel that? Because you're going through, this transition of what you're doing now, which is you've got a working career. You've realised there's a higher calling, a higher power, a gift that you have. You've written your book, and now, who does this book? Who is it going to help? Who is it aimed at? Explain to the Diamond viewers who it's going to help and why it's going to help them.
Well, let me actually digress again and tell you a little about the book. So the Gifted Storyteller is not one of these step 1, step 2, step 3 type books. Although I like those books, I personally learn best through stories. I find that when you read a story and you get engaged by the characters and you find them interesting, you go on a journey with them and you discover and you learn. And that's why in the writing I wrote a book that was something of a quick read, but relatable. When I was trying to figure out, this is after I had written it and kind of was talking to people about it, because everybody said, well, you have to have a market, you have to have an age group or this, who is it targeted for? And I couldn't figure it out. And then I had met a woman from the UK who had said to me, she's like, it doesn't sound like it's an age group. She's like, it sounds like it's just a moment in time in life. Because whether you're a college age person, in your late teens or early 20s, and you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, and you want to figure out, well, what is my story? What am I going to believe about myself in order to achieve the things that I want to achieve? Or what the book is actually about is about a gentleman in his 20s. His name is Michael, and he is successful. In other words, he's got a great job, he's independent, he's got money, he's got relationships going on. He's got what, if you looked at this guy, you'd say, he's got it all. He's got everything going, and he's a great guy, and all is wonderful, except he does not feel successful. He feels very stuck. And he goes through this period in the beginning of the book where he's kind of like, well, what's next? I guess I meet a woman, and I get married, and have kids, and then I die. And that's it. And he's like, there's got to be more than that. So, the story introduces with him kind of, you're learning about his life and who he is. And then one night he goes out to a bar, as many people do, after work, gets on a drink, and he kind of starts thinking about a woman that he works with that he admires. And he has a little crush on her, for lack of better words. And he starts what I refer to as storytelling. In other words, the story starts where he starts imagining, well, what if she came into the bar right now and she sat down next to me? What would she say? What would I say? And he goes in this little story and starts spinning in his head. And the next thing you know is that a woman kind of comes up to him face to face, and she looks at him and she's like, are you having fun? And he gets kind of caught off guard because he was so locked into his story, he didn't even realize this woman was in front of him. And he's like, what are you talking about? She's like, whatever's going on in your mind. Are you having fun? You seem like you're having a big story going on up there. And basically he tries to, poo-poo her and say, no, I'm fine, this and that. But she calls him out on it. And she says, look, I'm not interested in your stories. I'm interested in an actual conversation with you. Because what you're doing is you're storytelling. You're not present. You're at a bar for whatever reason, maybe to meet somebody, whatever the case is, and you're not even here. And so he meets this woman by the name of Jeannie, which of course I use as the pun as a genie in a bottle. And Jeannie kind of becomes his mentor and explains to him and teaches him about life and how to use his storyteller to create a better story. And something I kind of use in the beginning of the book, if I can just reference the page, I like to, again, I'm a teacher or educator, and I try to break things down and make them very simple. It's just, I think I said this to you when we spoke at one point, is that like, I try to talk to somebody like they're 8, and not to be condescending in any way, but a lot of times we like to have things very simple for us. Why should things be complex? Let's make it simple. So I use optical illusions a lot, and one of the optical illusions I use, I don't know if you can see this right there, is a simple optical illusion of, you can either see two faces looking at each other, the two blackened faces looking at each other, or the vase or the candlestick in the middle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So I use that as an example because that's what life is like. In other words, at any given time, there's more than one option present. If you focus your vision, so to speak, on the two faces, that's the story you're going to start telling. That's what your life is going to be. You're going to see one angle and start telling your story about it. But there's also this other candlestick or the vase that's in the middle, and you could start telling your story about that. Both are equally real. Both are equally present. But where you choose to focus changes things. And this is kind of like why relationships, we have issues in relationships. Who doesn't have, bumps in the road in their relationships, whether with their mother, father, sister, brother, spouse, children, where you get into an argument and you say, no, it's like this, and they say, no, it's like this. Neither one is really wrong. You just have to take the time to say, what is this other person seeing that I'm not? And if we stood back and did that a little more in life and kind of asked, well, what am I not seeing here? What is an opportunity that's present in the situation? Then you get a wider view and you're able to make a better decision. It's a little bit of a struggle at the moment in the beginning when you're first doing this and you're kind of stopping yourself, but over time it starts to move quicker. Something will happen and you start saying, okay, this can mean this, or this. Which of these stories is going to empower me? Somebody says something to me. What's the best way to respond to them that's not going to hurt their feelings or insult them, but maybe it'll make them understand me a little, or maybe will help me get to understand them a little better. So the Gifted Storyteller, again, takes you through, again, you have Michael, he meets Jeannie, and she takes him through all of these little lessons in about 130 pages. It's a short book, where if you go on the journey with Michael, you're going to start to say, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way.
It's a great story. I mean, I'm already feeling I want to know more about Jeannie and Michael. I've not had the opportunity yet to read your book. Obviously, I've done some research on you and everything that you've been going through. But thank you for sharing that. I was immersed in the story there. So I think maybe an audio book as well, Greg. I think an audio book as well could be, vital. Now I know in the future that you're looking to move into public speaking. Some programs for the Gifted Storytelling. I understand you're going to be starting to do some Facebook Lives. How's the future going to grow for you over the coming months, Greg?
Well, I mean, as you mentioned, right now I'm involved in education. I'm a principal of an elementary school, and it's a gift to be able to work with kids and teachers and really build our future. But, the day will come eventually, later in the future, where I will expand. I'm looking to help more people, to get more people aware that they have more control than they think. because, again, we get very stuck in ourselves sometimes. And I think that's what brings about a lot of sadness, hurt feelings, feelings of loneliness, feelings of anxiety. We've all felt these feelings. And some people get very locked into them. We get anxiety attacks. We get bouts of sadness that, will become even stronger. And if we can help people understand in general that, well, that's one story, that's one version, what's another version? It really kind of frees you up. And I found that many times in my life, especially recently as I've been really getting into this concept of helping develop a better story for yourself, that the way you see life and when you're really responding, not reacting, but responding to what life brings to you, you end up feeling a lot more alive. You end up feeling a lot more connected. I found my relationships have strengthened. My connection to people in general has grown tremendously. My connections have gotten deeper. My relationships have gotten stronger. My ability to relate to people, it's profoundly affected the way I've lived. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else is going to come, down the path.
It's fantastic. It's so enlightening and empowering to hear as somebody speak that's going through this transformation and going through a sort of higher calling and awareness. You talk about connections, and you put that so succinctly and so eloquently. And thank you. I know that the viewers will be taking a lot from this interview. It's humbling for me actually, because the Diamond Show, this is the third or the fourth live show for the Diamond Show. So it's in its infancy, and although I've had the great pleasure to be an editor of a business magazine, I've interviewed quite a few entrepreneurs in different sort of standings and status in the UK and around the world. This is my true calling now with the Diamond Experience. I'm humbled really to have you online, Gregg. And I think you're talking about connections. My connections are growing stronger just by default that we bumped into each other. The law of attraction, the universe has brought us together. That we're both on a journey, and our viewers are on a journey, and they're all on a journey. We're all on a journey of discovery, and we all want to improve our lives and strengthen our connections and feel more at ease with ourselves, or more congruent with our values. And it's lovely to see you resonating. That what I call the glow, the diamond glow around you with where you're at, because for many people that are starting out in a journey of going into business, you're not only holding down a full-time career, you've got a lot of responsibility with what you do in your career, and you're building a business on top of that. So total respect to you, Gregg, for what you're doing and what you achieved, and really totally humbling experience for me. We've got an option for viewers to actually book a discovery call with Gregg. Gregg's looking to expand his business. He's looking to grow his business and strengthen and grow his connection. So if you want to book a discovery call with Gregg, then by all means, please do visit. I'll put up there the Gifted Storyteller on screen in just 1 second. But if you'd like to book a discovery call with Gregg, then please do go to the website, which I'm just adjusting now, and book a call with Gregg. But Gregg, let me just ask you a question. Do you think there's a difference in children being aware and adults being aware? Are you looking to help both types, both age genres? I mean, I feel that the book's really for adults that make looking for transformation. What sort of target audience are you looking at?
Well, I think really, I think it's great for young adults in college. I think people who are trying to, number one, at the college age, and number two, trying to first start a career path. But I got to tell you that I've had great response from people who are in their 50s and 60s as well, because they are retiring, or they're at this point looking for what's next. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to retire. But retirement is a very pivotal point, because you've devoted your whole life to something, or whatever your business is or your job is. And now you've got to start thinking about yourself. And I've had amazing response from people who are of so many different ages, because again, it's not about an age. It's about a moment in your life where you're like, well, how do I feel about what's going on in my life and what else can I do? And again, the Gifted Storyteller, the whole point is to give you a little inspiration, to give you something to think about that's going to help you move forward. Because if you think about it, the reality is our life is all about our emotion. In other words, if you feel great and you're happy and you're relaxed and you're enjoying and you're present, I mean, that's what you want. That's not to say that you're not going to have moments of sadness. I think we have a lot of times where people think, oh, I shouldn't be sad, or I shouldn't be angry, or I shouldn't be whatever. But it's kind of, if you look at nature, and this is something else the book talks about, everything is in cycles. You know, as Jim Rohn once talked about so famously, you know, the seasons come and go. So, you know, winter will always be here. It's always going to come. But spring always follows winter. And summer always follows spring. You're going to have your high points and your low points all through life. The key really is to have faith in yourself and to strengthen your belief in yourself. And that's a daily practice. That's something that you have to work on continuously so that when the storm arises, you're okay. That you can handle that, and that all of that can be going on around you, and you could take a deep breath and say, you know what, I'm okay, and I'm going to get through this. And I know I will. It's just got to be one day at a time. Something else when we haven't talked about this is the book also deals with loss, because it actually opens up where Michael is in the hospital losing his father. His father is literally on his deathbed. And part of this journey that he goes through at this point is he's in the process of losing his dad. And what does that mean? What does that mean to lose somebody who's so close to you? And how do you move on from that? And that's also something that Jeannie kind of talks him through and discusses with him, because there's no magic, you know, somebody tells you this and you're going to be okay with the fact that somebody you love is gone. But again, going back to that story, you could focus on the loss, or you could focus on all the love that you've had. And you could focus on all the special moments and the happiness. And when you place your focus in the right situation, the right place, it makes things a lot easier. You know, and there are certain things that are just a natural order. And I forgot who had said this once, but nobody wants to lose their parents, for example, but you don't want it to be the other way around. That would be horrible. That's not the natural process. So whatever the case is, and even if it is, God forbid, a child, whatever the case is, what did this give you? How did it add to your life? And how can you use it to benefit yourself and other people? There are so many people who've turned what are devastating tragedies into gifts for themselves and others. It's amazing what somebody could do with the right mindset, with the right story.
That's so true. You're talking about that. That resonates with me so much, because last year my uncle, he'd been diagnosed with bone cancer, and for about 5 years, you know, he got worse and worse and worse, to the point where he died last November. In the Royal Free Hospital in London, and he was quite a private man. My uncle was a former wine editor, and you know, to be by his side at night and watching him sort of fade away and going from the man that he was down to this little sort of bag of bones that wasn't my uncle, and holding his hand pretty much right up until the moment of passing was quite a tough time. And actually, behind me, I've got a book on my shelf which is called James II. And that was the book that I read to him pretty much every night through the night while he was passing. And it was a difficult time. It was a tough time. But do you know what? I remember my uncle, when myself and my two sisters were young, we were in our junior school, and he come down and he was going to do a feature photo shoot for a magazine. And we was all dressed in our school uniforms, and we ended up going to our old school where we were an infant school, which was in Staples Road in Loughton. And we were sitting on the climbing frames holding all this chocolate, bars of chocolate. There was my little sister in her uniform, her little caps, and me in little shorts. And I had this memory of these black and white photos. There were colour photos at the time. I'm only 47, right? But they were taken in sepia. And it was a happy moment. We were children. We were innocent. We captured this moment. So although with my uncle passing, I remember the joyous times. I remember him driving along in his Lotus Elan with the roof down, and I used to look at this Lotus Elan. It was a burgundy, gold and white one, and the most beautiful car. So I have that really, fantastic memory state, and I'll always hold him in that state. So it's true what you say. And I think this can be said the same about life, that you can turn any negative into a positive if you choose, even though at times it can be quite difficult to do so, but you can do it, right? You can do it. So we've now put it back up on the screen, and thanks for sharing that, Greg. That's, again, amazing information for our viewers. Thank you for that. And again, I'm just going to come back to the discovery call. So if you're watching right now, then of course we'd love you to get in touch with Gregg Korrol in Brooklyn, New York. There's a 5-hour time difference, so it's roughly sort of 4:30 over there in New York. But please do go to the giftedstoryteller.com, reach out to Greg from the UK, get in touch, ask for a discovery call, explore your options, because in any diamond discovery, in any diamond journey, you have two choices. Hear, see, feel and touch something and sit back and do nothing about it. So don't look, don't hear and don't feel something. Or you can decide to make a diamond exploration, go down an unknown path and contact an unknown person that you don't know, connect with that person, and actually you're never going to actually know where it's going to go until you make that connection and you reach out. I can remember years ago, I wanted to import clothing from the Far East, and I reached out to someone, and the next minute I was importing clothing from Indonesia, and something like 30 to 40 containers came across in the course of the year. I was 25 years of age, ended up at a 20,000 square foot warehouse, and it's by reaching out and exploring that happened. Ultimately, the Far East crashed in 1998, 97, 98, and it cost me nearly £500,000 overnight. And I lost everything. But what I learned on that journey of being in business and trading internationally was priceless, and worth 10 times that. But if you don't reach out and you don't explore as an entrepreneur and connect and try new things, even though at times it may hurt, you will never experience the diamonds that are contained within the journey of life. So do move forward. Now, Greg, we're coming to the back end of the interview now. You've really given some fantastic insight into Gregg Korrol, who you are, what you do as an educator for 30 years. I'd like to end up with one of your best stories, and I know that you do a free chapter from your book, but I'd like to end up the interview with telling us one of the stories about Michael and Jeannie that we can finish on, that's going to leave us really in an inspired state of mind. So over to you. I'm going to get my story listening ears on. Tell us another inspiring story from your book, if that's okay.
Sure. That's interesting, because it's really, there's a lot of little moments there. But I think I'll leave you with this, because a lot of people have emailed me about it. And there are kind of two moments where Michael's kind of connecting with nature, and Gene is kind of guiding him on this. And there's a moment where he kind of is looking out at the ocean. And we had spoke about this briefly, but I think the ocean is an amazing metaphor for life, because the reality is we're all like waves in the ocean. And if you notice, a wave rises up and falls back into the ocean to be part of something larger. But I think too often we don't think about the fact of all that's going on inside the ocean. So in other words, you have fish swimming all over, you have pull from the moon, gravity, you have the Earth's pull, you have waves that are coming from halfway around the world that are affecting other parts of the world. And I think that's a good analogy for life, because oftentimes we're walking through our day and we encounter people and they may say something or do something, and you don't really know about the storm that's going on inside. You don't know about all the effects of what's happening within them. And we may react to something that they say, or we may not like the way they say something and then make up a story about them. But I think it helps to be a little more understanding of the people we encounter, remembering that everybody is going through something. Everybody has a story. And it's great that you may be on a certain type of journey and you're looking for something. But as you go through your journey, try and judge less. Try and make a little less decisions about other people, because we really don't know. You never know who the person sitting on the bus next to you is, what their background is, what they've gone through. And I think to some degree, if we could all be a little more tolerant and accepting of others without making those judgment calls, even when somebody says something that we may disagree with or that we may not like, to just kind of allow it to pass. It doesn't have to be your problem. It doesn't have to be your issue. And just act with kindness. Act with kindness towards others. And you'll find that when you act in a certain way, and this is also a huge theme in the book, I believe life is a reflection of you. In other words, when you act in a certain way and you convey yourself in a certain way, you'll find that people will respond with the same kind of kindness.
That's beautiful. I feel so at peace talking with you, Gregg. Obviously, being a teacher, for 22 years, you've got this ability, this natural ability to convey the way that you speak and the way that you tell the story, and hence why the Gifted Storyteller's there. I love listening to you, actually, and I really do want to hear more from you, but from your voice as well, because your voice is absolutely fantastic. And something that we've not spoken about is actually the Gifted Storyteller and your podcast, because you've got a podcast which I'm just going to share the screen for the viewers to see. But you've got a podcast that you broadcast your stories from. So I want to talk about that just very quickly, before we jump off. So I'm going to share the screen now. Bear with me. Let me just come out of where I'm at. I'm just going to share the screen so people can see that. So the screen is now sharing. So I'm on the page now with your podcast. So the Gifted Storyteller. We've got the GS Motivational Podcast. Sick of Other People's Opinions. The Gifted Storyteller, episode 10. Bullying is an Expression of Misery, episode 9. Hi, have you met me lately? Episode 8. You Messed Up. Excellent. Episode 7. Love that title. We've got the Gifted Storyteller. You Can Change the Past. Episode 6. Episode 5 is the Gifted Storyteller, Creating Moments. Then episode 4, the Gifted Storyteller, A Gifted You. How fantastic is that? And then the Gifted Storyteller, What is Storytelling? The episode 2 is Why Do I Get Upset and Angry? Then the first one, What is the Gifted Storyteller? So I'm going to stop sharing the screen now and just come back to you. So listen, what a fantastic website, what a fantastic concept book, the fantastic and huge congratulations from everybody over here in the United Kingdom and wherever you're watching around the world. It's been my great honor and pleasure to interview Gregg Korrol from Brooklyn, New York City this evening, author of the best-selling book, The Gifted Storyteller. We're wishing Gregg every single success on his continued journey. Please do reach out, chat with Gregg. He's happy to do some discovery calls, to help you move forward. And again, I'm just going to pass up on the screen that you can book a discovery call, which I think I've got the correct address there now, thegiftedstoryteller.com with Gregg Korrol. Gregg, listen, thank you for taking the time to rush back from work today. I'm sure you're cracking on with business tonight. Now, Gregg, I'd love to have you back on the show in a month or two. I normally do a first interview and then a second interview, and we talk and connect and try and promote and connect each other's connections so we can build and grow together. But it's really been my honor. I'm very humbled to have you on the show, and God bless you. And thank you very much indeed. I hope one day again to come back to New York. It's been a while since I've been out there, but it will be a pleasure to one day meet in person, whether that's at Radio Works, broadcast and events here in London or out in New York from at the moment from the UK. Thank you very much indeed, Gregg. And if you'd just like to say a few words to the audience, and then we'll wrap up for the evening.
So first of all, I do want to thank you, Bradley, for having me on the show. It's been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed this. And to the viewers, I really want to say again, I do hope you pick up the book because honestly, there's a lot in there that if you leave with one thing in that book that kind of makes you think, and makes your life a little better, and I know you're going to leave with a lot more than that, that's what I'm looking forward to, because the reality is I want to help people. I want to help people tell a better story. And again, it's not the story you're telling to other people. It's the story you're telling to yourself. It's the way you're seeing your life. And your life is a gift. what are the chances, all the experiences that you've gone through? Nobody else has gone through the same journey you have. And if you think about people that you look up to, leaders, celebrities, musicians, whoever they are, what do they always say? Be yourself. It's the hardest thing to do. That's the joke of it. What should be the most natural is the hardest thing to do, to just be yourself. So again, I do hope you guys reach out to me. You can email me at greg@thegiftedstoryteller.com. Obviously, go to the giftedstoryteller.com website. There's a blog post. There's podcasts. I try to give out a lot of but enjoy.
Hey Greg, sorry I just cut you off of the broadcast there for 2 seconds. You just said I tried to give out a lot of, but I pressed the wrong button. Broadcasting faux pas there from the Diamond Show. Sorry, but you said you give out a lot of...
Yeah, if they go to the website, you can get the first couple of chapters of the book free. You can even get the first couple of chapters of the audiobook free. It's there for you. Give it a listen. And again, pick it up. And definitely give me your feedback, because I love the reviews that have been posted on Amazon. There's about 40 reviews so far, and the emails that I've gotten have been spectacular. And that's really what it's about. If we can help one another, because you think about it, if each person just has a slightly better day, that one person might affect 10 other people, and then 10 other people may affect 10 other people each, and it just expands from there. And that's really what it's all about. We're all in this together. And I look forward to hopefully meeting you on our journey at some point and hearing from you, and I'd love to connect.
Absolutely fabulous. Greg, listen, thank you very much indeed for coming on the show. This is this evening's Diamond Show with Bradley Chapman, brought to you exclusively on Radio Works World Broadcasting Hub on Facebook, Radio Works News. So listen, for the rest of the week, we've got a fantastic lineup again tomorrow evening. We've been joined by Supreet Arora, also known as Sherry, or better known as Sherry, from New Delhi in India. Supreet will be launching his new book on the show. His Motivational Sparkles Facebook group has over 50,000 members. I'm delighted and absolutely truly inspired to welcome Sherry to the show. Then on Thursday, we jump back across the pond to the US of A, in Gregg's home country, as we move across to Durango in Colorado to interview the amazing and awesome Jan Moore, who is a spiritual success coach, amazing lady. I've had about an hour's conversation with Jan in Colorado just before coming on the show this evening. The Diamond Show is starting to gather pace and energy, but remember, this is about heart-centered entrepreneurship. It's about connecting together as a global audience, a global connections of friends, helping each other, supporting each other, and becoming a really fantastic diamond. Reach out, help somebody today wherever you can. Also, just a quick plug from me. My book is also out, which is called Get Up, Show Up, Shine Up, Discover the Diamond Within. It's on Amazon currently. I've also got a second book coming out in November, which is called The Diamond Experience, An Entrepreneur's Journey, which also features entrepreneur interviews from around the world. Hopefully Gregg Korrol will be in that book as well, amongst many of my other interviews that are taking place over the next couple of months. But until then, I'm Bradley Chapman. This is The Diamond Show, proudly sponsored this evening by happycabs.com in Chelmsford, your premier taxi cab service. And from me, it's good evening. And Greg, good evening to you.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
God bless. Thank you. Broadcast ended. Thanks for watching, viewers. God bless. Take care. Bye. That's good, isn't it?